And here we are at the Ulster Aviation Society's big hangar.
These hangars weren't built for the RAF, they were built to be used by Short and Harland, because this was one of Short and Harland's outstations for the assembly of Stirling bombers. They were listed, the buildings that is, were not listed, scheduled as historic monuments about 7 years ago now. They are unique in architectural terms. They are basically standard T2 type of hangar for any of you who might have an interest in this aspect of things. But reflecting their use of Stirling assembly buildings, they are about 4'6" taller than they normally were. And that was to accommodate the height of the Stirling, which those of you who take an interest in these things, you'll know the Stirling was the largest of the 4-engine heavy bombers used by the RAF during the Second World War.
Standing at the back end of the Buccaneer here. And there's a Royal Navy machine, I don't know what that is. And this hangar is ginormous, and I believe they have 2 hangars. But this is a charity, and they're self-funding, and they get no support from anybody. Seacat missiles, I think, or blue pipes. Skyvan away in the background down there. I recognise the tail. Here are various aircraft built by Shorts.
The Americans then changed the specification for commuter aircraft. Up until this was built, we were only carrying 18 passengers on the commuter airline. And then up to 30.
And here's the Shorts 330. There's just so much in here. You'd need a day or 2 days to spend wandering around in here. This museum is unique in the whole of the UK because it actually takes aircraft out and about the place and exhibits them. We're in the engine room here, the engines from various aircraft. This is the radio room. It's got all sorts of radios.
Okay. Belfast City, Aldergrove, we're down about here somewhere. If you look carefully, £1,000 plus VAT. So we reckon for Belfast Telegraph we raise 85,000, and we can raise 85,000 because the Northern Ireland public's very, very generous usually. So we started that, we put it out on our Facebook page, and the very night that we put it on, we got a message from a guy in England saying, guys, I have a full-size replica Spitfire for sale, and I'm looking 26,000 for it. I thought, 26 versus 80, no brainer. So we sent a guy over to Linton News in Yorkshire to have a look at it. He took some photographs of it and he sent us a little message with a photograph saying, guys, I belong to 2 museums here in England. I know if we could get the money, we would buy this. So having looked at the photographs, the fact that he worked on the battle-proof flight Spitfire, he said, 40 feet away, I couldn't tell you that it wasn't a Maritime Festival last year. With those ships. When I came down one morning, there was a guy waking under it and had his head on the air. He said, what are you doing? He said, son, I was just having a look at this Spitfire. He said, I've worked in fiberglass all my life. He says, I own a fiberglass company.
This is the wing.
Whoever made that is absolutely fabulous. He says, that is 5-star.
Here we have a Grumman Wildcat. This is our most important aircraft here.
And she actually took part in World War II, which makes it really, really special. Which is special for another reason. She was with the Naval Squadron on the carrier HMS Searcher, and whenever D-Day took place, one of the most important objectives was the town of Caen in France. They reckoned they had it in 24 hours. 6 weeks later, they were still trying to get from the outskirts into the centre of Cannes. So they invaded the south of France on the 15th of August, 44, and this aircraft took part in the south of France invasion. She was flying up and down the coast, responding to the guns that were bombarding along Nice and Toulon. So she's a warbird. Whenever the searcher came back out of the Mediterranean, she went into Harlem Wood for some work. The squadron flew off to Ballyhalbert. They were there for 2 weeks, and then they came here to Long Kesh in October 1944, and they were here until February 45. So she was actually placed here at RAF Long Kesh. How did we get her? On Christmas Eve 1944, she took off with another one to go on a tactical reconnaissance of the province. Only airborne a few minutes when the engine caught fire, and the guy ditched it into Portmore Lock. Portmore's a little lake, it's almost a mile in diameter, just outside Lower Ballinderry. It's now an RSPB reserve.
That's right, yeah.
Ditched in there. He thought whenever she went into the water she was going to go nose down. The engine weighs just under a ton, and he climbed out and clung onto the tail. What he didn't know was there was only about 5 or 6 feet of water in the lake, so she just fell to the bottom and fell over to the left-hand side. So he was rescued. His only damage was his forearms were burnt, because he reckoned, he told us later on, he's still alive. As he opened the throttle to try and climb to bail out, the flames got longer and more fierce, so he decided, I'll close the throttle. And since she was full of fuel, there was no way he was going to try and put her down onto the field. You can see the narrow undercarriage. She would almost certainly have flipped over, and he reckoned he had been burnt to death. So crashed into the water. And 1984, we lifted her out with the help of the army, and they say we've been on it ever since. Stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. But I wouldn't like to chart the number of hours I've put into it.
This man has been working on this plane for 35 years, he says. This is a workshop area, and they're working on this Wildcat plane warbird wing. This wing actually was out of the water, and people took bits for souvenirs, so they're trying to rebuild it. This is a doodlebug.
Right, well, we'll just continue down here a little bit then. We call this our IKEA section. Now, if you've been out with a wife down to IKEA, you'll know why. You get stuff like here in the hot packs, and these are all little home builds. So you buy them in boxes, you take them home to your workshop, your garage, and you put them together.
This is actually a replica of a doodlebug, and it would have carried 1,800 pounds of explosives, and that would create some amount of damage. And quite a number of these were fired.
Well, the Germans apparently made more than 40,000 of them.
Right.
And huge numbers were used, of course,
Yes.
primarily against London, but other south coast cities in
Yes.
England as well. Plus, it's reckoned about 1,000 of them were air launched.
Right.
So they were carried to a target underneath specially adapted
Brilliant.
Heinkel bombers.
Right.
And about 50 miles from the target, the engine would have been started up. It would have been dropped and
And
would have carried on
carried
its own
on,
power. Manchester was attacked by 31 of them
Right.
in December 44.
They would have been scary things.
Yeah, oh well. Fortunately, you heard them coming, and if you heard the engine stop, you dived for the nearest shelter you could find. But the V2s, of course, they were supersonic. That was the weapon that came after these.
They were so far advanced.
Oh, the Germans were
Germans were
mightily far
light,
advanced. in
light years ahead
Yeah,
in every respect.
yeah.
All sorts of work being done on various types of aircraft.
Navigator's River, and then the Navigator's River.
This was an anti-submarine aircraft with 2 engines. They could actually shut one down.
This little one here is the World War II.
What is the name of this one here?
Fairey. That's the name of the company.
Gannet.
That's Gannet.
And an anti-submarine, probably
Based at Eglinton in the 1950s.
in the 50s, right? So it was a Cold War type
Yeah.
aircraft. A Fairey Gannet.
Quite a few of our aircraft.
This is a Buccaneer. This is one of the types of aircraft that bombed the Tory Canyon whenever there was the oil spill, I remember.
So it's actually fully serviceable, and £8,500 include the delivery flight from Mussymouth in Scotland. So at that stage, 94, we were based at Langford Lodge. We had two 6,000 runways, 6,000 foot runways, which were fully serviceable, and we asked them to fly them to Langford Lodge. In their wisdom, they decided Langford Lodge wasn't secure enough to send an RAF party over to decommission it, so they flew it into Aldergrove. And I was working in Aldergrove at the time in air traffic, so I knew a lot of the RAF guys quite well. To cover the 2 3/4 miles from Aldergrove to Langford Lodge took 92 seconds. Hangar, and half as long, 2/3 as long again, at about 120 miles per hour. She weighs 13 tonne at the moment, she's empty. She weighed approximately 20 tonne when she was landing. So I reckon they were all on cocaine or something like that. They all had to be smoked before they went flying.
Oh dear.
Nice aircraft, and she's one of the best kept in captivity, so we hope to keep it that way.
We're standing at the back end of the Buccaneer here. And this is a Hawker Sea Cat. Single seat naval fighter and bomber. And I'm standing beside it. Fold up wings for space purposes on the deck of the aircraft carriers. And there's some pictures of it in action. And there's it being transported over here. Oh my goodness. Cockpit area. What's this? And this is a hunting jet Provost T3. It's a trainer. (1988). Finished operational life in 1988. And it's breathing cold in here, folks. Everybody's well wrapped up. And there's cross sections of the wings. There's all the info about it. This is a Vampire
On the drawing board during World War
Split rear end. The de Havilland Vampire info. It was a trainer. One of 143 vampires delivered to the RAF between 52 and 53 for pilot training. Its successor was a sea vampire, which was often seen at Sydenham in Belfast. This is a Bedford QL, and it held a 950-gallon refueler.
Took the vehicle outside and they shot blasted it from top to bottom, the chassis and everything. Every time the guys at Greek Yard got around and something went wrong, the undercarriage collapsed, the engine was start. And had we got okay, and the guy test with a little tanker off, and the engine started off.
And this vehicle here is actually ready, almost ready to go out on the road to various shows.
This has been sitting outside for 28 years in Scotland, so look at the condition of it. It's pretty damn good.
This Phantom is in the best condition that it possibly could be. It's probably the best condition of any Phantom anywhere in any museum.
Having sat outside for 28 years, you can imagine just how difficult that was.
So this is a Phantom. And I think I remember the Phantoms fighting and flying in Vietnam. I'm nearly sure.
There's the end of it.
This hangar is where most of their work takes place. I get away out here.
I didn't go on the very last trip because I didn't think there was anything I could do to help the guys. So they released all the boats they got.
There's pictures of some of the guys working on it.
Only with 4-ton wing, and they proved it not.
This is the second hangar. And this is a Puma. Love the tiger artwork. Machine gun out the side door. I can imagine somebody popping away with this. No entry. And it's all here, folks, at the Ulster Aviation Society hangars down at the Maze.
If you write
Alouette.
to the Defence Minister, let us know when you've written to them. We'll wait a week and then we'll send a letter saying we think you should have one. So that's what happened in 2009, and we decided, we heard through the grapevine that we were going to get this one, 202. So we rang our friends down in the airport and said, I believe you're donating 202 to us. Oh, I couldn't, it's a wreck. He said, what do you mean it's a wreck? He said, well, it crashed. He says, we've been using it for spares, we've been cannibalising it. He says, we couldn't be donating that one to you. I said, well, that's what we're worried, and it's coming through official channels. So all panic. What had happened was this one was being cannibalised. To make this one complete again. They took it into their paint shop, they rubbed it all down, and they gave it a brand new coat of paint. Married at a place called Loch Esk, and the hotel was on the lake shore, and there's a little peninsula goes out with a circle at the end of it. And the idea was the bride and groom were to stand on the peninsula path, and the helicopter would come down and land behind them. Well, we've actually traced the photographer and got a copy of his photographs. So there's the bride and groom, beautiful standing, when you see the helicopter appear behind them. And the next photograph is a little bit lower, and then the next photograph a little bit lower, and the next photograph, what you can see is the two rotor blades sticking out of the water. The official inquiry noted cause of accident unknown.
Oh dear.
So what happened was the guy who was flying it, the guy on this side was hanging out the door, obviously saying, down a bit, down a bit, down a bit. Watch him when the tail went into the water, and it just went in and had a splash. Pretty badly damaged. This was completely stove in. You know, the blade that come around and hit this, and it was sort of V-shaped.
This was the actual helicopter that whenever Lord Mountbatten was blown up, and the wee boy that was killed along with him, this was the Irish helicopter, the Alouette, that actually searched for the bodies offshore.
And we wrote them and said, could you send us a winch? Because we have an Alouette up in the winch. And they sent us the paperwork, and they rang us up and said,
So French manufactured Alouette used by the Irish Air Force.
along the serving aircraft. We bought this one from eBay.
And this is
Air traffic and watched all these
the Westland Wessex.
The Puma, and somebody said, West of you. Hello? This one said, Ray, these helicopters when they take off, as they go towards Grumman, one will break off and go to Langford Lodge. That's the one we're presented with. I thought, thank you very much. But yeah, so watch the one take off. We passed Grumman, thought, oh, this one's going to break off. It wasn't the first of April, the 31st of March, we called me here back in the center. But a year and a half later, one of our members saw this one advertised and he tried to see up. It was down at Shoreham, on the south coast of England.
The Wessex was the workhorse north of the border, while the Alouette was the workhorse south of the border. Worked out of Bessbrook.
In comparison to other, that was like a bus. Yeah.
Packed in. If you can see this, pilot, co-pilot up in there with their feet visible. shot of the Wessex from this side. Instrument panel. Nothing has been removed out of this aircraft. You see it as it was. The only things that are missing are the engines and the gearbox. This is the only one of its kind in the world. It was a research plane. You can see that it's got no tailplane, and the wingtips swiveled. So it was just checking how the aircraft would perform. And they're rebuilding it here, little by little.
Some of you might remember, and whenever this came on the market, a lot of people thought it was named after Sherpa Kenzie, because Kenzie and Molly flying whenever, I think it was 52. This is flying 50-51. Shorts to me were never very imaginative about naming their aircraft. So this is actually stands for Short and Harlan Experimental Research Prototype Aircraft. And to me, that's more like where they got the name Sherpa from. We bought this, originally we bought the fuselage off, well, we paid to get it transported here, and then about two years after that, the Imperial War Museum, they were rationalising anything that wasn't war related, they wanted rid of. And of course, it was built as a research aircraft, so they wanted rid of it. And we said to the girl, look, we've already paid to get it back to Belfast. It was made in Belfast. It flew in Northern Ireland. We think it should stay here. And she said, I agree with you. So I'm going to give you a bit of advice. She says, don't be bidding to pay a lot of money, because no one else is after it, and no one else is bidding big money for any of the other aircraft. So I've told the committee, let's go £2,000. Once it had finished flying, it got all the figures, facts and figures, it went to the back of the hangar. What we've done is a flyable machine. So if it gets off the ground, stay there more for 3 or 4 seconds, that'll be enough. And the BBC, as far as I know, are then going to name the aircraft to us. So we'll have a replica of Harry's flyers. I think it's the 3rd machine he built. The first machine was slightly different. It had a square fuselage. This one has a V-shaped fuselage.
This aircraft is a subject of a BBC documentary to see if it could get off the ground and fly.
Whenever we go back and the other hangar, you'll see the Puma.
And here's the Shorts 330. There's just so much in here. You'd need a day or 2 days to spend wandering around in here.
And then we had decided we'll ask the RAF to loan us a Chinook for the afternoon. So we went to the RAF and said, what about loaning us a Chinook? And the guy said, well, Ray, I'd love to do that, but if you break it, it's going to cost you 13 million to replace it. So what insurance do you have? So with no insurance, the guy who flew this aircraft behind you, flew the aircraft with that type, was the insurance broker, so I rang him, and he just retired. The young guy who had taken the place was very quick, insurance, so he said, well, I'll ring you back. They rang me back in any museum.
Best kept 330 anywhere in the world.
You hear voices speaking in there. The radios are actually tuned in to the guys at Craigslist and Belfast City, so it's not a tape, it's actual aircraft talking to the controllers.